Guys, hello everyone. Today, I'd like to talk with you about a really interesting conversation I had with a small child. I found it fascinating that this child was so open to dialogue. I know many of you try to talk to your own children, asking them questions, but not all of them are willing to communicate in that way. I've tried talking to my own kids, and indeed, most children are not too eager to have these kinds of chats. But sometimes certain children really do remember where they came from. They remember who they were in a past life. They recall moments we would find unreal or fantastical. Some kids even start telling their parents these things, but parents usually dismiss it as imagination. They just think the child is making it up and they don't pay attention. Even in my own experience, for those who don't know me or are new to my channel, my name is Nadesta. I'm someone whose abilities haven't been blocked. I'm awake in this place, so to speak. I can feel energy. I remember who I am as a soul, where I came from, why I'm here, a lot about the universe. This hasn't been blocked since I was about 11 years old, so I'm fully conscious both here and elsewhere. On my channel, I share what I recall, what I see, and how our world is arranged. I'm also an empath, able to see the subtle plane and perceive the energies of the world around us. But anyway, I've encountered plenty of moments like this in my life. For instance, as a kid, I told my mom who I was in a previous life. Of course, she reacted like, "Oh, she's making up stories again." She was curious and wanted to hear more from me as a little girl. Later, when I was 15 or 16, I remembered my most recent past life, the one right before this one, and I told my mom, "Hey, I just recalled this past life." And she said, "You know, that's exactly what you used to tell me as a little kid." It matched perfectly, which confirmed for me that I really was remembering a past life, not just having some random hallucination. Because I've always been a bit of a skeptic, I like having physical evidence or confirmation to back up my experiences. I've also seen cases with close friends. One friend's daughter, maybe around 8 or 9, used to tell her mom that she once lived in such and such a place. She had a husband and 2 kids, and so on. They would just laugh, thinking it was fantasy or imagination, until one day this girl mentioned something she could not possibly have known. She talked about a very specific spice they used in cooking, some exotic spice no one in the family had heard of before. The girl kept mentioning it, saying, "And we should add a bit of this," and using a strange name. So they argued with her about it, then finally typed it into Google, and it turned out to be a spice commonly used in parts of India, which matched the region the girl described. It's widespread there, but here in Russia people don't even know it exists, and certainly the little girl couldn't learn about it from anywhere, especially at that age. It was a powerful sign that she was remembering something real. But let me get back to the child I mentioned earlier who was different from that little girl with the spy story. The conversation I had was extremely interesting, and this child spoke about everything so casually, like it was perfectly obvious. He seemed to think I should already know all about it, like it was self-evident. I'm aware that many of you hear stories about how we've all been captured, forced into this cycle of samsara that we can't escape, that we're enslaved in some way, that our souls are locked here, that we belong to someone who won't let us leave. There are claims that we're stuck forever in reincarnation, can't leave the universe, and that some evil reptilian or other alien force has enslaved us. People spread this widely, saying everything's terrible. But let me share this child's perspective. A child who hasn't been here very long, who just recently incarnated. We had a dialogue, and I'll do my best to convey it accurately, maybe not word for word, but as close as possible. What he told me pretty much shatters those doomsday claims. I specifically asked certain questions because I was curious. I personally don't feel that we can't leave or that everything's horrible for us all, so I wanted out the child's view because all he sees are random cartoons. Like, basic toddler shows about colors or shapes, nothing about conspiracies. So his opinion is about as untainted as you can get. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. So first I asked, do you remember where you were before you came here? We'd tried before, asking him, do you remember who you were in a past life? But he didn't get it. This time I phrased it differently, and he answered, Wes, I remember. I said, you do? And who were you before you came here? Do you remember where you came from? And he said, I came by ship. I asked, you came by ship, a spaceship? And he said, I didn't fly here. I floated here. I paused and asked, wait, you didn't fly here? What do you mean? He answered, I floated here on a cosmic ship. So at that point, I was a little taken aback, because we usually say flying through space, right? But he insisted, no, it doesn't fly. It floats, though. And if I look at the subtle plane perception of space, it's more like floating than flying. After our talk, I double-checked with my own clairvoyant sight about how space appears to me. When I perceive it in the subtle plane, it's more like cytoplasm. I'm not sure why that analogy comes to mind, but that's how I experience it, not like water, although some parts of the lower realms feel watery. I've mentioned that lower worlds often feel like a dark ocean, and people who have out-of-body experiences sometimes feel like they're emerging from a deep sea of murky water, representing those dense, negative realms. But the higher, more cosmic spaces aren't water, like they feel more like cytoplasms, a semi-fluid substance, maybe with a kind of cosmic dust. It's just how I perceive it. Anyway, back to the child. When I said, oh, so you flew here on a spaceship, he kept correcting me. No, I didn't fly, I floated. He really emphasized that for him, a spaceship doesn't fly. It floats. And that's a telling sign that he wasn't just making things up using the typical human phrases. He was describing his own experience. Then I asked, so why did you come here? Did you come to help humanity transition? Because I know some souls come here to help with the shift in consciousness. But he said, no. And I was surprised. No. Then why? I started wondering, could he be from the dark side? But then he said something that shocked me. What do you mean? I came here to see real dinosaurs. I was like, dinosaurs. He said it was so much enthusiasm, like someone visiting a zoo to see a real tiger. I asked, wait, so you don't have dinosaurs where you came from? And he said, no, you can only see real dinosaurs here. Oh. And suddenly I realized he was probably talking about reptilians. He talked about these dinosaurs like they were some kind of rare species. He even said it was like they were kept in a cage, or they were raised but released not really free. He struggled a bit to explain it. It seemed he didn't have all the words, but the main idea was that these dinosaurs were brought here and they're under some sort of control. They might think they're free, but actually they're in a cage of sorts. He had absolutely no fear of them. To him, it was like an exhibit in a zoo where you can come observe them, maybe even poke a finger in there. He was so matter of fact about it. They can't eat you. Don't worry. Maybe they'll nip your finger, but that's all. That perspective totally amazed me, because so many people say, oh, the reptiles have taken over everything, that it's horrible, that we're all doomed. Yet for him, it's as if they're in a cage, and he's safe. From his soul's viewpoint, he's only just arrived here and still remembers a lot. There's no sense of personal danger at all. It's more like a child at a zoo, checking out an interesting species. So I asked again, you're really not scared of these dinosaurs? And he was like, no. Why be scared? They can't eat me. At most, they can bite your finger. And he was basically reassuring me. For him, there's total security and a sense of everything being under control. That alone was a huge eye-opener for me, first because it confirmed much of what I've observed on the subtle plane, but also because it flipped my perspective. Sometimes we think this place is so terrible, but this newly arrived soul clearly doesn't see it that way. He doesn't see it as a disaster zone. He sees it as fully safe. with the dinosaurs locked in a cage, so to speak. Then I asked, so you came just to see dinosaurs? And he said, yes, imagine real living dinosaurs. They're here, and he was so excited, like that was the main thing. I asked if he came here alone, and he said no, he came with his family, his relatives. Then I asked, so was your mom with you in that other world? And he explained that she was already here. She had apparently lived here for multiple lifetimes. He himself was coming for the first time, but his mother was familiar with this place. Then I asked him how exactly he got here. Did you just float down on your spaceship and walk in? He laughed and said, no, of course not. You can't just come straight in like that. I asked, really, you can't just arrive in your spaceship? And he answered, no, that's not how it works. I said, well, how do you get in then? And he said, only through the game. This child used that exact word, game. That totally blew my mind. Because for years as I've been saying that we incarnate into this reality as if it's a game. And here's this kid confirming that you can only enter here by playing the game. You can't just park your spaceship and stroll in. So that's why, when people say, some benevolent aliens are going to land here and fix everything for us, I always insist that nobody can just come here physically to fix things. Anyone who wants to help has to incarnate here. We, ourselves, are those cosmic aliens who arrived to see this reality. We came through the game, just like he said. That was a huge confirmation for me. Anyway, our conversation went on. I really wanted to continue asking more questions, like, surely you're not only here to look at dinosaurs. Do you have another mission? Something else you hope to accomplish here? But the moment I asked those deeper questions about whether he had a special role or purpose, he just shut down, he said. Okay, that's enough talking. Leave me alone. It was very clear that he wasn't willing or able to discuss it, which was a shame because I wanted to learn more. But maybe it's for the best. Sometimes the soul wants to keep certain things private. Another key question I asked was, aren't you afraid you can't leave this place? Some people say you get stuck here in a loop, unable to escape. Are you worried? And he basically looked at me like, why would I be worried? There's nothing to fear. He was shocked that I'd even consider it an issue, like, of course I can leave if I want. He kept reassuring me, don't worry, it's easy to leave. And I clarified, so you could just exit the game and float back to your ship and go somewhere else. And he said yes, that there's no big deal about it. Then he returned to the dinosaur example, saying they can maybe bite your finger, but they can't really do anything to you. You can still leave. As essentially, from his perspective, we're not trapped here at all. So, for everyone who's being told we're stuck forever, we're in the cycle of samsara. It's a prison. Please keep in mind that these newly arrived souls don't see it that way. The child said very clearly that if anyone's trapped, it's the dinosaurs, not us. These reptilians might believe they're free, but in reality they're contained. Meanwhile, for us, we can come and go. And that's exactly what this child conveyed. He definitely didn't feel forced to come here or enslaved. He was practically thrilled. Whoa, I get to see real dinosaurs. As if this place is a miniature Jurassic Park. And a lot of souls are like, hey, let's go check it out. So that's basically it. I hope this story reassures you at least a bit. We have this idea that everything is hopeless, but in reality, it may be more like a grand exhibit that certain souls want to visit. In any case, guys, don't be afraid. Sending you hugs and love, and remember, there's really nothing to fear. See, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share my channel. Become a member of my Telegram channel and discuss with like-minded people as a supporting club member.